Okay, two stories. Mr. Architect and Mr. Oklahoma. So, Mr. Architect actually met him last year. This is a last year story on OkCupid. We literally talked for 4 months before we even exchanged phone numbers. Fantastic conversation. 4 months straight. 4 months straight. Fantastic conversation. Knew just about enough about him where I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to exchange phone numbers. I'm ready to meet him. I'm ready to go on a date. I'm ready. This is when I was really pumped up last year about dating everybody and their mother. So he gets my phone number. It was a busy week for both of us. So neither one of us really, and I'm not really a big texter. I hate doing that. So the first night he calls me, I'm super excited because his name pops up and his picture pops up in my phone. I'm like so excited. So he calls me. I answer the phone. He's fucking drunk. And I'm not talking about just a little. I'm talking about just he was sloshed. Like it was a hot mess. It was bad. It was so bad. And then to top it off, he was a butthead. Like he was so disrespectful. He was so rude. He was so obnoxious, and how he spoke to me. And it took me about 3 minutes in to realize that he was drunk, because it just didn't sound like the person that I had been texting all these months. But then again, whatever. So we get off the phone, and about 3 or 4 hours later, he calls me back. So I'm thinking that he's calling me back, realizing what an idiot he was. And he's sober. Nope. He was actually drunker than the first time. So then I just hang up the phone, and then he calls me the next day. I'm thinking maybe he sobered up. Nah. He wasn't as drunk as the day before, but he was still drunk nonetheless. And he kept it hidden a lot longer on this phone call. And then he hiccuped. Just messy. So he was drunk again, was still being a butthead. I can't remember. He said some kind of asinine remark to me, and I just hung up the phone. I was just like, he ain't gonna know anyways. He drunk as hell, so whatever. So that was the end of Mr. Architect. Mr. Oklahoma, around Thanksgiving last year, a very good friend of mine met him at a bar in Kemah. He told her about himself. She's like, oh my gosh, you'd be perfect for my friend. She sent me all of his information. The next day, we went out to one of my favorite bars out in Seabrook. And he fit my little criteria: tall, a little dark, very attractive, gorgeous eyes, just nice. He was a widow, and he told me about his daughter and stuff. Over the next like 3 or 4 weeks, got to know each other. Like literally, we talked every night. Got to know a lot of information about him. And then he was like, you know what? I'm going to come out there for New Year's Eve. We're going to do it big, ring in the new year real big. And I was like, you know what? I would love that. So from Thanksgiving all the way up until Christmas, maybe about the 23rd, we were in constant contact every day. The 23rd came, he dropped off the face of the earth. Then he calls me on Christmas and tells me that he can't come out for New Year's Eve. And I was like, oh my gosh, is everything okay? What's wrong? He's just like, well, basically he told me he had some things going on in his life. He couldn't tell me about it. He can't come. And he was very short, very abrupt with me. And I'm like, well, what's going on? So he basically told me he couldn't tell me in 2 weeks. So I'm like, if you really like, what is it? What is it? So I'm just not, again, I don't like surprises. Okay. So then that's when he drops the bombshell on me that he had a young lady that he had been having relations with for the past few years popped up HIV positive. So he's just like, well, I might be HIV positive. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, okay, well, so I can understand the whole turtle shell with him and him going in his, his box and everything. And I'm like, well, I get it. So then he drops another bombshell on me because while we're doing all this talking, he's telling me that he's been, celibate for some months now. Apparently with this recent event coming up, he had been screwing several women at the same time. And we're not talking about like Well, heck, anytime it's more than two is way too many, but whatever. It was about a good three or four different women, while he was living in Oklahoma, talking to me. And basically the conversation that he was having with me did not match his actions and what he was doing. I get it. Men have needs. I get it. We're not committed. We're not in a relationship. I get it. I'm still getting to know you. And like finding out that you're banging three or four different chicks all raw, that kind of didn't sit well with me. Then to make matters worse, 2 weeks later, the results come back that he was not HIV positive. But he did have herpes. And not only did he have herpes, he also infected 2 other women with herpes. And then upon finding out about this, he proceeds to also share with me the fact that one of the women was his ex-fiance that he continued to have sex with after they had broken up. The engagement was off, and he had been financially supporting her for the past 2.5 years. And, you know, we had a conversation, and the last conversation that we had, gosh, it may have been a couple of days after the new year, and we never spoke again. But the conversation was basically like, you know, your life is changing. It's not a death sentence, but it's definitely changing. But if you're trying to actively pursue women, you can't be sent up here to financially support another woman that you don't have children with and expecting someone to take you serious. He didn't really like that. He felt like basically all of this that's going on in his life, I should have stood by his side, and that I was wrong, and that I was this and I was that. There's been not a lot of men, but there's been men that I've stood by their side and it didn't benefit me. Not that you should do it just because it benefits you, but you should definitely do it if they're worth it. Not everybody is worth you standing by their side. I felt like him, the fact that he had 3 or 4 different women that he was sleeping with, all unprotected, that was not someone that I felt that was worth sticking around for or being patient with. So